Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. As promised, I have somehow managed to condense an entire week's worth of testimony of NGN's witnesses into this one video. Of course, that means that, as I did with Johnny Depp's side and his testimony, it's all very condensed. This is just to point out highlights and, more importantly, the strategies that were utilized by Johnny Depp's legal team to convince the court that none of NGN's witnesses' testimony is credible or reliable. So the strategy for Johnny's lawyers was to discredit. So we know that Ms. Wass didn't exactly do the best job with discrediting Johnny Depp's witnesses, at least that's in my opinion, and Mr. Sherborne did a really good job with reestablishing any credibility that they may have lost. But did Ms. Laws, Johnny's other lawyer, successfully discredit each and every one of NGN's witnesses last week? We're about to find out. Starting off, of course, with NGN's star witness, Amber Heard. So Amber's allegations in general can be summarized as follows. Everything negative that happened in that relationship was attributed to Johnny. It was all Johnny's fault. He was controlling, manipulative, and abusive. And out of her love for him, Amber stuck around because that's what her mother did with Amber's father. And also, she tried her best to hide Johnny's abuse to protect his privacy and his dignity. There's a lot of projection in her evidence, so she attributes wrongdoing on Johnny's part that she has been pretty much doing herself, which of course includes the physical abuse, but also the controlling behavior and the intense jealousy. She flat out denies all of the evidence that has been submitted by Johnny's side. So according to Amber, everyone who had something to say that contradicts her evidence is lying. This includes medical professionals such as Dr. Kipper and nurse Erin Buren, as well as independent police officers. All right, some highlights from the cross-examination by Miss Eleanor Laws, who did quite a stellar job of revealing the incredible amount of inconsistencies and inaccuracies in Amber's testimony. Now, as you may know, Amber insisted that it was Johnny who was jealous and incredibly possessive of her. To challenge that allegation, Miss Laws raised medical evidence written by medical professionals, in which they stated that Amber had jealousy and insecurity issues when Johnny was away working. Of course, Amber attempted to twist this during her testimony and stated that what they meant was she had issues with Johnny's jealousy and insecurity. Miss Laws really nailed her on that one and pointed out that if that was the truth, then Nurse Buren would have specifically stated that in her note, but she didn't. She assigned these feelings directly to Amber. Laws also refers to and plays the recording in which Amber can be heard telling Johnny that she does indeed throw pots and pans and things at him, and that above all, she despised how Johnny would split or leave at every argument. So Amber couldn't really give a straight answer, as usual. You'll notice that she is incapable of providing a straight answer. She says that she was merely being sarcastic when she admitted to throwing these things, and that she was just going along with Johnny's story. She also says that if she did ever throw anything, it was always in self-defense. Only a moment later, she completely denied ever throwing anything at Johnny, even in self-defense. Laws challenged her and pointed out that in the recording, Amber never uses the word self-defense or any derivative of that word, and Amber concedes that and says, but that's not the point. So we are left without an answer as to whether it was in self-defense, or whether she actually did it, or whether it wasn't in self-defense, but that's not the point. 3 different options that the judge, I guess, is left to pick. She also completely denied having a violent and turbulent relationship with her ex-partner, Tassia Van Ree. Now, of course, Ms. Laws brought up the fact that Amber was arrested in October of 2009 for assaulting her ex-partner in an airport in, I believe, Washington State. Amber, of course, said that she was exonerated, but Ms. Laws pointed out to her that there is a huge difference between exoneration, which is being found not guilty, and having your charges dropped because there isn't enough evidence to convict you. On to the infamous painting incident of March 2013. For years, since 2016, Amber maintained that this incident where Johnny hit her so hard across the face that blood spattered onto the wall took place on the 8th of March 2013. But on the 6th of July of this year, she changed the date to the 22nd, and she only did this after reviewing the trial bundle of evidence. Miss Laws stated that this is because Amber came across a photo, which was dated the 21st of March 2013, in which she was with Keith Richards on set and clearly injury-free. So she had to change the date to make her allegations believable to a day after this photo was taken so that she wouldn't have to explain why there were no injuries on her face on the 21st. Now, during testimony, Amber stated that she did not make a mistake and that there were two separate incidents that took place, one on the 8th of March and one on the 22nd of March, except Miss Laws very quickly points out the only thing she said was that she got the dates wrong and that whatever happened on the 8th happened on the 22nd. Miss Laws showed Amber another photo, which Johnny's legal team surmised, based on other evidence, was taken on the 23rd of March 2013. Now, there was a dispute about the date of this photo, which I believe the judge will be dealing with in his final judgment. But effectively, we now have a photo of Amber on the 21st of March and very likely on the 23rd of March, which puts the 22nd, the date she picked, right in between those two dates. And both photos depict her with no injuries. Upon looking at this photo, Amber disagrees and states that she can clearly see that her bottom lip is swollen and visibly injured. I can't personally see it. Miss Laws didn't see it. Pretty sure the judge isn't gonna see it, but let me know in the comments if you see it. All right, moving on to March 2015, the incident in Australia. I've already covered the details of this incident, so we're just gonna focus on the evidence that Amber presented in trial. So the only evidence that was provided to support her claims was a low-res photo of the cuts on her left arm. Now, Miss Laws pointed out that the cuts are straight and quite neat, which corroborates Ben King's evidence. If you'll remember when I discussed Ben King's evidence in probably part 2 or part 3, can't remember at this point, I said that usually self-harm cuts tend to be neat because they are controlled. The cutter decides how to cut themselves. Now, Miss Laws pointed this out in court to Amber and told her they were far too neat to have been caused during an intense scuffle. But of course, Amber disagreed. I do want to point out one thing, by the way. The point of cross-examination here is to show the judge how unconvincing and unreliable the witness testimony and the evidence is. The point isn't to get the witness to agree that they have lied. They can stick by their evidence until the cows come home. What matters is that these inconsistencies are brought to the attention of the court. Amber also maintains that she had no idea there were two separate recordings with regards to this incident, even though they were made on her phone. So first she says she was completely unaware of them and that she was sedated by Johnny's medical team. She then changes her testimony a few moments later and says Johnny was the one who pressed record on her phone. So once again, she gives us two contradicting accounts and says something on the stand that was never mentioned in her statement. And think about it, what are the odds that there was a recording on her phone and that she was completely unaware of it, especially when you consider the fact that Johnny and Amber have been involved in legal issues since their separation in 2016. So she's been going through all of her evidence and sifting through it and making sure she has enough of a case against him, but somehow she missed this recording on her phone. So essentially, she denied being responsible for secretly recording this incident. With regards to the staircase incident in which Amber admits to punching Johnny to defend her sister, she added a new detail in her statements and in her testimony, something that she has never ever brought up in her deposition or in her declarations in years prior, which is that she heard that Johnny pushed Kate Moss down the stairs and therefore was in fear that he would do the same to her sister. I think we all remember the famous deposition footage of her describing in great and passionate, dramatic detail how she defended her sister. And not once did she consider mentioning Kate Moss and the connection that she made in her head. A further inconsistency from the November 2015 Thanksgiving dinner incident, during which Amber and Johnny had a significant number of friends and family in attendance. Now, Amber stated that she and Johnny would never ever fight in front of anyone, which is why any witness testimony with regards to their fights is completely unreliable according to her. Except her friend Raquel Penton stated that Amber and Johnny went upstairs and had a fight in the midst of that dinner. Amber fumbles and once again comes up with this two separate incidents kind of explanation. She says that this was the first part of the incident, but that there was a second part, the more violent part, that took place when no one else was around. Now, Laws actually alleges that Raquel is entirely making up this incident in support of Amber, but we'll talk about that when we discuss her evidence later in the video. With regards to the 15th of December 2015, Amber stated that Nurse Buren, when she dropped by on the 17th of December, was only there to give Amber medication, not to examine her. But you'll remember from previous videos that Nurse Buren specifically wrote down in a report that Amber had no visible injuries. So clearly, she had a good look at her. And I don't believe that it's difficult to miss a broken nose and 2 black eyes, which Amber insists that she suffered from. So you wouldn't even need a thorough examination to see those incredibly visible injuries. There was also the photo of the clump of hair that was taken. If you really look at it, it doesn't look like hair that's been ripped from the root. And Amber actually agrees and says, yeah, my hair broke off mid-shaft when Johnny pulled it. Laws very aptly pointed out that hair usually rips from the root, especially if someone is grabbing you from the hair, rather than breaking off mid-shaft, which I've never ever seen in my life. But Amber stood by her story. Doesn't matter. The inconsistency was pointed out to the court. And don't forget, she took photos of her injured scalp. There was a wound there, or at least she alleges there was. Why would your scalp be bleeding and injured if the hair wasn't ripped from the root? With regards to the 21st of May, there is a major inconsistency. Laws pointed out that Amber now claims that Johnny threw the phone twice, once on the couch and once at her face. Something that she has never mentioned in her US declaration with regards to the defamation case. She only states that he threw it once, and that was right at her face. And she also says the same thing in August of 2016, a few months after the incident, where her memory would have been most fresh.
All I remember is him screaming these expletives at my friend Io and telling her that she could have me now, and then he threw his arm back and he threw the phone, what appeared to be as hard as he could at my face.
Amber blamed the restricted word limit of her declaration for not saying that he threw it twice, which I think would be an extra, 6 words? He threw it at the couch first, so that's an extra 7 words. But apparently it didn't fit, so they just left it out. Laws also brought up the fact that Amber was clearly compiling evidence against Johnny to blackmail him, and that when he didn't concede to her demands, 3 days later, so she called him on the 24th, or I think they were texting on the 24th, whatever it was, 3 days later, she went to court with a magical bruise on her face. Amber's response to that was it was her lawyer's idea. And this is another point where I can offer some insight. Lawyers can only do what they are instructed to do. We can't just go off on our own and make demands out of people if those demands weren't stipulated by our client. And then finally, the recorded phone conversation that took place between them on the 26th of May 2016, in which she mocks Johnny and tells him, no one will believe you. I dare you to tell the world, tell the court, that a tiny little woman beat you, a grown, strong man twice my size. And her explanation was that she was trying to spare him the embarrassment of going public because she had so much evidence against him and was trying to convince him to settle things amicably, which of course, according to her, means meet my demands or else. Ms. Wass's re-examination was relatively short in comparison to the length of the cross-examination, and honestly, that's because there really wasn't much to do to fix the damage that was caused by Ms. Laws. Predominantly, Ms. Laws tried to reestablish Amber's credibility by referring to text messages that Amber would send to people in her life, including her mother and her best friends, in which she alleges that she was beaten up by Johnny, with no additional independent evidence to back her allegations up. She even used a couple of text messages that Amber sent to her mother in 2013, where she clearly states, Johnny did not hit me. He's not being physically abusive. But that was used by Ms. Wass to show the court that she was simply trying to protect him from the wrath of her father. With regards to the blackmail allegations, Amber's response was simply she had no incentive to blackmail him because she was entitled to 50% of his worth anyway. Alright, that's it for Amber's testimony. I do want to move on to the rest of the witnesses before I give you my final remarks on her evidence and of course the overall evidence of NGN's witnesses. So the strategy for Johnny's legal team with the other witnesses is to show that Predominantly, apart from Amber's sister Whitney, who was there during the staircase incident, the rest of the witnesses never witnessed any physical harm firsthand. So everything that they are alleging in their statements is purely hearsay. Now that is an incredibly strong strategy, because hearsay is very weak evidence that is afforded little to no value. Our second witness is Josh Drew, who was married to Amber's best friend, Raquel Penton. So his cross-examination centered on the events of the 21st of April 2016 and the 21st of May 2016. With regards to the 21st of April, Amber alleges that Johnny was inebriated and high and behaving erratically. Mr. Drew, however, stated that Johnny was in fact coherent, sociable, and in a friendly mood, and was affectionate towards Amber, and that he was only slightly inebriated. So, inconsistency. Now, Josh was deposed with regards to the U.S. defamation case on the 19th of November 2019, so relatively recently. He's been divorced from Raquel for a few years now, and as such, hasn't really been in contact with Amber or Johnny or anyone, because Raquel was really his connection to that couple and that world. In his statement, he admitted that he has had very little interactions with Amber since the divorce, and yet Ms. Laws pointed out to him that he met with Amber very shortly before he was due to make his deposition. When asked whether they discussed the case at all, he said no. Now, what is the likelihood of that being true? Somehow, suddenly, after maybe 2 years of not talking to each other, they suddenly decided to meet purely coincidentally very shortly before he was meant to be deposed. And we are meant to believe that they did not discuss the deposition at all. We all know that Amber has a tendency to reach out to people whom she knows are involved somehow in the legal case, same as she did with Laura Divinier, where she had her come over and recorded her as soon as she found out that she had given a declaration to Adam Waldman. So do you really think the judge will be convinced that Amber and Josh happened to meet just to be friends and chit-chat? Josh was there on the night of the 21st of May and alleges that he was there when photos of Amber were being taken. And more importantly, he states that he showed the police around and there was significant damage. So Josh was basically calling the police officers liars for testifying that there was no damage whatsoever. That was the extent of Josh Drew's evidence, so we can move on to our next witness. I made a couple of videos about Melanie Iglesias recently because she is the makeup artist who was fighting so incredibly hard to prevent herself from being forced to testify in this case. Of course, she ultimately lost, which is why we have her testimony. I discussed the relevance of her evidence in great detail in 2 videos, but in essence, she claims that she witnessed the injuries on Amber on the 15th of December 2016, and she had personally applied her makeup for the James Corden show the next day and covered up the bruises and the split lip. The most important aspect of her examination in chief, which is Was examining her before Miss Laws had the opportunity to cross-examine her. This was the only witness that was examined prior to cross-examination, by the way. So during the examination in chief, Miss Iglesias actually said that Amber's signature lip was a bright red one. So the fact that she had bright red lipstick for the James Corden show is a really weak way of convincing the judge that they applied that specific color to hide her injuries. Blood is never that color, especially when it's all dried up. It's a very deep shade. So why not go for a deep red or a burgundy or something that would completely blend in with the color of human blood? Another thing that Miss Iglesias pointed out in examination in chief, which is very damning for Amber's side, ironically, there wasn't really any swelling. And the bruises weren't even that dark, so they were very easy to cover with makeup, and indeed were completely covered by makeup. Now, if you'll remember Amber's testimony, and you will see that Raquel's testimony was that she was very swollen. She had black eyes, so darkness was attributed to the description, and a broken, swollen nose. And then we have the makeup artist saying that there was no such thing in examination in chief, not even in cross-examination. Her cross-examination was short. She testified that she never witnessed any violence firsthand, and everything she had heard was a direct result of what Amber was telling her. All right, Whitney Henriquez, formerly Whitney Heard, Amber's sister. Her cross-examination was another mess, because essentially her evidence was entirely modeled after her sister's evidence. She too was cross-examined about how the 8th of March 2013 suddenly became the 22nd of March 2013. And whatever day it was, what ultimately matters is that Whitney confirmed that after the painting incident in which Amber's blood was spattered against the wall, they met Keith Richards on set, and a photograph of Amber with Keith was taken that day. And Whitney testified that Amber had a swollen face, very visibly injured. Now, when she was presented with the same photos that Amber was presented, she was asked to respond to this simple question: can you see any injuries in this photo? She tried to fumble around, but Laws got a straight answer of, no, I can't see any visible injuries in the photo. A few moments later, when presented with the second photo, when Laws challenged her and said that the entire incident was made up because Amber was clearly injury-free, Whitney basically copied her sister's testimony word for word and said that she can see a swollen bottom lip. She can see a split lip. Laws immediately pointed out to the court that Whitney said the exact thing that Amber did. And don't forget that Whitney was sitting in the gallery with the other witnesses watching her sister testify. Miss Laws also showed Whitney a series of text messages that were exchanged between her and Johnny on the 11th of February 2014, so almost a year after this painting incident, in which they were both dissing Tasia and laughing about the Tasia Van P that Johnny added onto the signature of a painting made by her. Now, this incident was described as the reason for the fight of March 2013. And when confronted about this, Whitney says she was confused and merged the two incidents in her statement, which is why there was no mention of two separate incidents, which is pretty much what Amber said as well. With regards to the staircase incident of March 2015, Miss Laws pointed out that Whitney left out an incredibly important detail in her statement when describing how Johnny was beating up Amber. She was asked if Johnny was wearing a cast, or I think she was even presented with a photo of Johnny wearing a green cast, and asked if she remembered him wearing it that day, and she said yes, he was. It had little dinosaurs on it. And Miss Laws pointed out that given he was accused of beating someone up, that was a very important detail to leave out. Whitney stated that it wasn't important to her because what mattered is that she was so traumatized by the physical violence that was going on before her. All right, the part that you were all waiting for, the video that was anonymously sent to Johnny's lawyers on the evening of the 23rd of July, so Thursday last week, I believe. I'll just play out the video for you now.
Did you get in a fight or something?
Oh, thank you. Got into an altercation.
Ow.
I already talked about it. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
I can't believe Amber beat your I know you could beat her.
We're not going to talk about that.
Whitney, truth or dare? Okay, did you really start the fight with your sister, or did she start it? For real, for real, for real.
We're not going to talk about that.
She really did whoop your butt.
Oh, we're not talking about it.
Yeah, I'm done. I guess I'm done talking about it.
So if you'll remember, a few weeks back, I made a video about new evidence being admitted after a trial has begun, and I mentioned the circumstances in which a court will be inclined to do so. And lo and behold, it happened here. So you have a real life example of when these things can happen. The judge allowed it because of course it's incredibly important. And most importantly, Johnny's team weren't even aware of the existence of this video until it was sent to them on the evening of the 23rd of July. When confronted with this, Whitney's response was that it was absolutely a verbal argument that she had with Amber, and she never laid a finger on her. Now, some people might be saying, okay, she fought with her sister, she beat her up, big deal. That doesn't prove that she would then beat up her husband. Except Whitney was specifically questioned in cross-examination about whether she was ever involved in a physical fight with Amber, whether she ever hit her, or whether she ever witnessed Amber being violent at all. And Whitney's response was a solid no, never, apart from childhood play. And then, of course, someone who was following this case sent this video to Johnny's team, which I'm sure they felt was like a godsend, like it fell onto their laps from heaven, because what are the odds? Now, will the judge be convinced that this video proves that Amber hit Johnny and physically abused him? Maybe. It certainly depicts that she is a physically violent person, physically violent enough to leave marks on her own sister. And finally, in an attempt to prove that the sisters have clearly conspired and corroborated their evidence, Ms. Laws pointed out that Amber fell out with her sister in 2015 after photos of her wedding were leaked to the public because Amber blamed her sister. So since May 2015, she was not living with them at the Eastern Columbia building, and yet somehow in her statement she said that she dropped by magically on the 15th of December 2015, the day that Amber alleges she was beat up by Johnny, to pick up the rest of her belongings and noticed that the bed was broken and there was blood and strands of blonde hair caked onto the bed frame. Now, what are the odds that someone who was not talking to her sister or Johnny and who no longer lived with them suddenly decided 6 months after being kicked out, so she had all that time to pick up her belongings, but somehow she ended up there on the 15th of December 2015? In what world do these women think that this is a believable scenario? All right, I'm going to briefly talk about Christina Sexton, who was Amber Heard's acting coach between 2009 and 2016. She doesn't work for her anymore. So she basically stated that Johnny was controlling, and that proof of that was that he disapproved of a lot of roles that Amber was offered or that Amber wanted to involve herself with. And one of them being London Fields, which is a movie that flopped, and Johnny advised Amber not to take it, told her it was trash, and she did anyway, and he actually stepped in to help her to cover for someone else's role. So if he wasn't supportive, as they claim, why on earth would he have stepped in to do that? But that argument was very quickly shot down by Miss Laws, and she pointed out that he is a very qualified person, a top Hollywood actor. And so giving his wife advice and his opinion on a subject matter that he was an expert in isn't in any way a form of controlling behavior. If anything, he cared about his wife's career. And of course, this is evidenced by the fact that London Fields flopped, as he pretty much said it would. Ms. Sexton also testified that Amber rarely wore makeup, unless she was going out for an event, in which case a makeup artist would apply her makeup for her. Amber was pretty much makeup free, especially in the daytime. This is in complete contradiction to what Amber has maintained so steadfastly in her evidence, which is that all of the Eastern Columbia building staff lied, and that she never left the house, never left her apartment without makeup on because she is a celebrity who gets photographed. And now there you have it. Someone close to her who likes her testifying that she never wore it. Now, Wass shot herself in the foot in re-examination because she asked this question again of Ms. Sexton, only to have her confirm what she said in cross-examination. And she specified the only time she saw Amber wearing heavy makeup was when she was auditioning for a role. So she was working. She wasn't just out and about running errands or hanging out with friends, as she was in the week leading up to the 27th of May, 2016. All right, Raquel Penton. Raquel's another person who pretty much repeats whatever Amber says in her evidence. Now, she regularly took photos of Amber's injuries to document them, and yet when Amber came back from Australia and Raquel alleges she saw cuts and gashes all over her body, all over her arms and the soles of her feet, she never took photos of them, couldn't even describe them to the court because she couldn't remember. With regards to the Thanksgiving incident in November 2015, she stated in her statement that Johnny and Amber went upstairs to fight in the bedroom while the dinner was going on. Now, the dinner was held in Penthouse 5, which has no bedroom upstairs. It's basically Amber's closet and her work area. So Raquel fumbled and said that she actually left Penthouse 5, crossed all the way to Penthouse 3 to see the damage caused by Johnny during the argument, which was never specified in her statement. She just said, we were in Penthouse 5 and they went upstairs to the bedroom. Major inconsistency there. With regards to the 15th of December, a day before the James Corden show, she testified Amber's face was swollen and visibly injured, when we now know from Melanie Iglesias that apparently that was not the case. So the witnesses here are having extreme issues with maintaining consistency, which is the polar opposite of the testimony of Johnny's witnesses, who were all incredibly consistent, even though a lot of them were completely independent people who had probably even never met. Whereas in Amber's case, all of the witnesses are close and friends with each other, and they still couldn't get their story straight. With regards to the 21st of May 2016, Laws makes the excellent point of, why take photographs of Amber's injuries if you didn't even want to show these photos to the police as proof of domestic violence. Because as you know, when the police came, they didn't want to file any complaint, any reports, were basically completely uncooperative with them. So why take photos if it wasn't for the purpose of blackmailing Johnny? Finally, we have Io Tillett Wright. He really is only relevant when it comes to the incident of the 21st of May, 2016, because he was on the phone, and that's a very important point to make. He was not there. He clarified to the court he was in Brooklyn, New York, while that altercation was going on. I've covered Io's evidence in great detail in my rebuttal videos, so again, for the 1,000th time probably, you can watch that if you're interested. So the main point of the cross-examination was to paint him out as this incredibly loyal person to Amber who had very strong feelings for her, specifically in 2016, and that he would have done anything for her, which includes writing and publishing the article that he did, Why I Called 911, in which he painted her as a domestic violence survivor. Except in cross-examination, Io himself conceded that he only wrote and published that article because Amber told him to combat a smear campaign on her character, which would have rendered her a gold digger. So the article wasn't even written and published to bring attention to domestic violence and to share Amber's story. It was just to fix up her image in the eyes of the public. But most importantly, what the point being made here is Amber told him to do it. And so despite never witnessing any violence or any evidence of it whatsoever, apart from the photos obviously, Io did her bidding blindly. Alright, that's it for this video. This brings an end to this witness testimony series. The closing remarks that I have with regards to NGN's witnesses is they were incredibly inconsistent. And I'm sure you all didn't need me to say that. As I said, this was all summarized. I only picked highlights, but Miss Laws and Johnny's team in general did an excellent job at cross-examination. They were so thorough, so detailed. And I said this before, I am learning so much as a lawyer myself when I look at the detail that they have gone into to discredit every single thing that was being alleged by Amber and the rest of NGN's witnesses. And in my opinion, they succeeded in doing so. And now we're just left with the closing submissions from each side. If there's anything worth making a video about with regards to that, I will. We're just gonna have to wait for the judgment now. And I currently don't know when the judgment will be made and released to the public. But you can be as sure as heck that I'm definitely gonna be making a video analyzing it and dissecting it, no matter what the result. So we have to bear in mind that this could go either way. As I mentioned in a previous video, the standard of proof in this case is quite low. It is on the balance of probabilities, so the judge just has to be convinced that there is a 51% chance or greater that serious harm was caused to Johnny's reputation, but also that the article's allegations were true. As always, let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I will catch you in a future video.